On December 7, 1941, a quiet Sunday morning in Hawaii was shattered by a deafening roar that would change the course of history. Pearl Harbor, a pivotal U.S. naval base, was suddenly brutally attacked by Japanese aircraft, marking one of the most infamous moments of World War II. The assault left the American fleet in ruins, plunged the United States into the war, and introduced a new era of naval warfare. But why did Japan take such a gamble, and why did it ultimately fail? This is the complete story of Pearl Harbor, the battle that reshaped the Pacific conflict and redefined the strategies of modern warfare. The origins of the Pearl Harbor attack stem from Japan's ambitions in the early 20th century. As an island nation with limited resources, particularly oil and steel, Japan sought to expand its influence and territory. As tensions rose in Europe with the rise of fascism, Japan's aggressive policies went largely unchecked. In 1937, Japan invaded China, unleashing a brutal campaign that shocked the world. Despite international condemnation, Japan continued its expansionist ambitions, targeting Southeast Asia's rich resources. By 1940, Japan had occupied French Indochina, encompassing Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, further solidifying its presence in the region. This expansion, however, did not go unnoticed by the United States. The U.S., concerned about Japan's growing influence, implemented economic measures to deter Japanese aggression, including a total oil embargo in the summer of 1941, and froze its financial assets. This was a severe blow to Japan, which relied on the U.S. for 80% of its oil supply, as Japanese diplomats attempted to negotiate in Washington behind the scenes. Plans for war were already underway. In October 1941, General Hideki Tojo became Japan's prime minister, believing war with the U.S. was inevitable. He and his generals planned a swift strike to cripple the U.S. Pacific Fleet, culminating in a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor to destroy the American fleet, demoralize the U.S., and secure Japan's empire. The Pearl Harbor attack was meticulously planned. On November 26, 1941, a large Japanese strike force departed from northern Japan in complete radio silence, consisting of 6 aircraft carriers, 9 destroyers, 2 battleships, and various support vessels. As they crossed the Pacific, American forces at Pearl Harbor were unaware of the impending threat. By December 6, the Japanese fleet was close to Hawaii. On the morning of December 7, American troops were waken up to a calm day, unaware that 183 Japanese warplanes were on their way. At 7:55 a.m., the first bombs fell. The initial strike was devastating, catching the U.S. Pacific Fleet completely off guard. 5 battleships were hit, with the USS Arizona suffering a catastrophic explosion that killed over 1,100 men. The USS Oklahoma and USS West Virginia were also critically damaged, while American aircraft on the airfields became easy targets. By 9:45 a.m., the assault was over. In less than 2 hours, Japan had destroyed or damaged 19 U.S. Navy ships, including 8 battleships, and obliterated over 300 aircraft. The human toll was staggering. 2,403 Americans were killed, and 1,178 were wounded. While the attack was a success for Japan, it had critical failures. The Pacific Fleet's aircraft carriers were not in port, a crucial oversight that would impact the war's outcome. While Pearl Harbor was a staggering blow to the United States, it was just the beginning of Japan's offensive across the Pacific. On the same day, Japanese forces launched coordinated attacks on U.S. and British territories across Southeast Asia. 10 hours after the Pearl Harbor assault, Japanese bombers struck Clark Field in the Philippines, the main U.S. air base in Southeast Asia. American forces, still reeling from the morning's events, were caught off guard once again. By the end of the day, much of the U.S. air power in the region had been wiped out. After the aerial assault, Japanese forces launched a relentless invasion of the Philippines. General Douglas MacArthur, despite this decorated reputation, was outnumbered and forced to evacuate to Australia after several defeats, including the fall of Manila, he vowed to return, leaving behind thousands of Americans and Filipino soldiers who endured brutal combat and eventual surrender on the Bataan Peninsula. Japan's rapid expansion continued unabated. In early 1942, Japanese forces were swept through British-controlled territories in Southeast Asia, capturing the crucial strategic points of Singapore, Malaya, and Burma. The fall of Singapore, considered an impregnable fortress, was a severe blow to British prestige and morale. Allied forces were quickly overwhelmed and Japanese troops seemed unstoppable as they advanced further into the Pacific. Hong Kong, another British colony, fell to Japanese forces within weeks. The swift Japanese victories were part of a broader strategy to secure vital resources and create a defensive perimeter around their newly acquired empire. And by early 1942, Japan controlled a vast territory stretching from the Chinese coast to the western Pacific. As Japan's forces continued their relentless march, the question facing the Allies was clear. How could they halt the seemingly invincible Japanese war machine? After Pearl Harbor, the US sought to boost morale and show Japan their homeland wasn't invulnerable. The answer came in the form of a daring and audacious plan led by Lieutenant Colonel James Doolittle, one of America's most celebrated pilots. The plan, known as the Doolittle Raid, involved launching bombers from an aircraft carrier to strike Tokyo and other major Japanese cities. The raid was fraught with challenges. The chosen aircraft, the B-25 Mitchell bomber, was modified to take off from a carrier, a maneuver it was never designed to perform. After extensive training, Doolittle and his squadron of 16 bombers were ready. On April 18, 1942, the USS Hornet, carrying the bombers, steamed to within 400 miles of Japan, and the raid was launched.
The Doolittle Raid inflicted minimal physical damage, but its psychological impact was profound. The Japanese people, who had been assured by their leaders that their homeland was untouchable, were stunned by the attack. Doolittle and his men were hailed as heroes back in the United States, and the raid demonstrated that America was willing and capable of striking back.
For Japan, the raid was a wake-up call. Prime Minister Hideki Tojo responded by ordering the creation of a defensive perimeter around Japan's newly acquired territories to prevent any further American incursions. Yet, despite their efforts, Japan's grip on the Pacific was beginning to slip. The Battle of the Coral Sea, fought in May 1942, marked a turning point in the Pacific War. It was the first major naval battle in history where the opposing ships never sighted each other. Instead, it was fought entirely by aircraft launched from carriers. This battle signaled the dawn of a new era in naval warfare, where air power would dominate the seas. The battle pitted a powerful Japanese fleet led by Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto against U.S. forces under Admiral Chester Nimitz. Yamamoto, the architect of the Pearl Harbor attack, was determined to capture key Allied positions in the South Pacific, including Papua New Guinea, to solidify Japan's defensive perimeter. The battle was fiercely contested. Japanese forces managed to sink the USS Lexington, one of America's prize carriers, and severely damaged the USS Yorktown. However, the Japanese also suffered significant losses, including the light carrier Shoho. Although the battle ended in a tactical draw, it was a strategic victory for the Allies as it halted Japan's advance toward Australia and shifted the momentum of the war. As the Pacific War raged on, a new and crucial front opened: intelligence. The US had a secret weapon that would prove invaluable in the fight against Japan, a team of code breakers working under the operation codenamed Magic. This elite group had successfully cracked the Japanese military's secret codes, giving the US vital insights into Japanese plans. In late May 1942, U.S. intelligence intercepted Japanese communications detailing plans for an attack on a location referred to as AF. Naval strategists suspected the target was Midway, a small but strategically significant atoll in the middle of the Pacific. To confirm their theory, U.S. codebreakers set a clever trap. The American base at Midway was instructed to send an uncoded message about a water shortage. Almost immediately, Japanese signals confirmed that AF was indeed Midway. With this crucial information in hand, Admiral Nimitz prepared a trap of his own. He concentrated his forces near Midway, ready to intercept the Japanese fleet. The Battle of Midway, fought in early June 1942, was one of the most decisive battles of World War II. Armed with the intelligence provided by Operation Magic, Nimitz's forces were well prepared for the Japanese onslaught. The Japanese plan, orchestrated by Admiral Yamamoto, was to lure the remaining U.S. carriers into a trap by launching a diversionary attack on the Aleutian Islands. However, Nimitz did not take the bait. Instead, he focused his forces near Midway, anticipating the main Japanese assault. On June 4, the battle began in earnest as Japanese aircraft bombed Midway, but they were met with fierce resistance from American fighters. Admiral Nagomo, commanding the Japanese carriers, was forced into a difficult position. He needed to launch a second wave against Midway, but at the same time, he received reports of American carriers in the area. Caught between conflicting objectives, Nagomo hesitated, a mistake that would prove fatal. American dive bombers launched from the carriers USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and the hastily repaired USS Yorktown descended on the Japanese fleet. Within a matter of minutes, 3 of Japan's largest carriers, the Akagi, Kaga, and Soryo, were turned into blazing wrecks. A 4th carrier, the Horayu, managed a counterstrike that damaged the Yorktown, but it, too, was eventually destroyed. The Battle of Midway was a catastrophic defeat for Japan. In a single day, the Japanese Navy lost 4 of its most powerful carriers, over 200 aircraft, and many of its best pilots. The loss of these carriers crippled Japan's offensive capabilities and shifted the balance of power in the Pacific.
The Battle of Midway shattered Japan's hopes for a swift victory, putting the U.S. on the offensive. With its island hope and strategy targeting key Japanese islands, American industrial strength overwhelmed Japan. But the war in the Pacific was far from over.
Guadalcanal and Iwo Jima still to come. Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, once seen as a masterstroke, became a desperate gamble that provoked a determined U.S. response. This total war effort, fueled by vast resources, led to Japan's eventual defeat in 1945. The history of the Pearl Harbor Battle and the Pacific War highlights the unpredictability of conflict. Japan's miscalculations and overconfidence transformed what was meant to be a decisive strike into a costly mistake. The attack awakened a sleeping giant, leading to pivotal battles like Coral Sea and Midway, which reshaped naval warfare and resulted in Japan's defeat. The lessons of Pearl Harbor serves as a reminder of the risks of underestimating adversaries and the unpredictable nature of war. Its legacy is etched in history, remembered as a day that President Roosevelt called a date which will live in infamy. The subsequent Pacific War was a brutal test of human endurance and courage, forever changing the course of history.